Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the January 25th meeting of the St. Mary's County Planning Commission. Our meeting this evening is being recorded for the public record. Any comments made by anyone present must be recorded as part of the record. Therefore, if you have anything to say, you must come up to one of the microphones provided, or when giving testimony online or on the telephone, please give us your name followed by your statement. Comments cannot be recorded and placed in the record unless they are done in this fashion. You are to direct your statements, questions, and responses to the board only, and we'll direct them to the appropriate person for an answer. And if it was a public hearing, we would keep our comments to 5 minutes or less. Anyone testifying or asking questions during our public hearings will be required to take an oath, and thank you for your cooperation. Tonight on our agenda, we have just a couple of items after our approval of minutes. Our first discussion this evening will be the Planning Commission's comprehensive plan review and update discussion. Following that, we will have a public hearing for the Chesapeake Bay critical area map approval, following any new business, following by adjournment. At this time, I'll let the board members that are in the room introduce yourselves.
Patty Robrack.
Howard Thompson.
Merle Evans.
Also with us this evening, we have Kim Summers, we have BJ Hall, and we have Joe Fazekas are with us through WebEx. Joe St. Clair also is with us. He's our alternate. He's on WebEx also. From Land Use and Growth Management, we have our director and deputy directors here tonight, Mr. Bill Hunt and Harry Knight. Our planner is Quasi Bosimpem. We also have another new planner, and welcome to the Planning Commission meetings, Courtney Jenkins, and our administrative coordinator is Kathy Garcia. Amy Carter is our video media producer. From the County Attorney's Office, we have Mr. Neil Murphy. And from the Department of Public Works and Transportation, we have Mr. John Dietrich. And that's all I see here this evening. Okay. At this time, we can go. Did everybody have a chance to review the January 11th set of minutes?
Mr. Chairman, this is Joe Fazekas.
Yes, sir.
There's a correction needed under discussion number 5. I believe it was Mr. Evans who seconded the motion number 3 and 4. It was listed as me.
Okay. Okay, are there any other corrections? Would somebody like to make a motion to approve with the corrections that are noted?
I'll make the motion. I make a motion that we approve the minutes for January 11th, 2021 with the changes that were reflected a few minutes ago.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Evans. I'll do that roll call wise. Kim Summers? You might be muted out, dear.
She's muted.
Yeah, you're still muted.
Yep. Okay. I'm here.
There you go. Okay. Was that a yay?
Yay.
Okay, yay.
Yay.
That's what I'm talking about. Patty Robrack?
Yay.
Joe Van Kirk?
Yes.
Merle Evans?
Yes.
BJ Hall?
Yay.
Mr. Fazekas?
Yay.
Okay, and I also. Okay, thank you. Okay, first up, first item on our agenda this evening is Planning Commission Comprehensive Plan Review and Update and Discussion. Mr. Bosimpem, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm fine, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and planning commissioners. On December 14th, 2020, I was here to make a presentation to you on our preliminary scope of work and strategy for the review of the comprehensive plan update. I gave you out those documents, and then we went back to our board and then our drawing board, and then reviewed the work that what was submitted to you, and then made some changes that for effective management and effective control, we tweeted and made a number of changes in the presentation I gave to you. So what I'm presenting here is just a revised preliminary scope of the comprehensive plan update for the review of the comprehensive plan. Yeah,
Okay.
should be one.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, PowerPoint 1, yeah. Yes, so the revised scope actually has been simplified in a way, and what we're doing is the statement of work proposes that you, the Planning Commission, designate yourself as the Comprehensive Plan Review and Update Committee with a total oversight role throughout the estimated 24-month duration of the plan. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, in that direction, we are employing you to direct the Department of Land Use and Growth Management as project managers to review and approve the revised scope of work and schedule, to request the commissioners of St. Mary's County for a directive to proceed with revisions of the 2010 comprehensive plan, to review a presentation of the trends and the development capacity report, and then also to manage online surveys, which will be part of the public outreach and visions and the planning element workshops, and then review the drafts of the comprehensive plan and schedule public hearings, organize work sessions, and then when all is done, you transmit a completed, updated comprehensive plan to the commissioners of St. Mary's County. Next slide, yeah. So what you see here, much more on the chart, which is the work schedule, illustrates the flow, the workflow and work plan of how we foresee this to be totally accomplished. We are in the initial stages now to present this to you and for you to pass a motion in terms of requesting the commissioners for directives to prepare review the comprehensive plan. Then after that, there will be what we call the Trends and Development Capacity Report. That will be a stage whereby we will answer several questions in terms of build-out rates and also socioeconomic trends and others in the county. The Trends and Capacity Report will be done in-house and also with the assistance of the Maryland Department of Planning and our GIS and our IT division. And I'll request that once we finish that work, which might take about a month, we'll make a presentation to you. Then, within the workflow is the visions. As you are aware, the Maryland Department of Planning has these 12 visions in which we'll do the workshops on. And we intend to work on online surveys, put surveys online to involve the community, do a lot of effective community outreach so that they will help us target these visions. The plan is within a period of about 2 to 3 weeks. For every afternoon, there will be one vision, in terms for the public to be able to be part of and participate in the plan program. Most of these visions will be geared towards what actually the Maryland Department of Planning has actually earmarked for us. After that, there will also be the elements group, which is the most important aspect of the project. The planning elements group are 9, and they've been worked out in a way whereby within a period of 9 months, we'll have one element for every month. The plan is we'll be forming committees, asking various directors and other expertise to form into planning element committees. And this will be either water resources, which will be the initial ones, sensitive areas element, priority preservation areas element, land use plans and growth management elements, transportation, public facilities, housing, human services, and economic element. If you look at the chart, I have them as 1 to 9 areas, whereby for every month, each planning element committee will be here. The program will be worked towards your reviews so that we will look at the planning agenda for the month and see how best we could schedule an element within that presentation. And the presentation will be made to you and for the public also to listen and then participate in it. When all is said and done, most of these planning element groups will be writing out reports and outcomes of what has transpired. And we will move on to the write-up stage. We envisage that there will be almost about 2 to 3 month write-up stage, that is crafting of the language of the revised comprehensive plan. Then after that will be the public hearings. Once they craft the document, we will have a draft document. Then that will be given to you, in which you would then organize and schedule the PC public hearings. After that, then you will schedule the PC work sessions. And then once you go through and then close the public hearing, then whatever changes and others that will be made, there will be a transmitter of this to the commissioners. And they will also organize their public hearings, conduct their work sessions, and then the final approval will be the revised comprehensive plan. So this is the workflow that I'm presenting to you. And my request is for you to review, discuss, I think you've already taken a look at it, and then request the Commissioner of Mary County for a directive to proceed with the revisions of the 2010 Comprehensive Plan. If there's any other explanation that you want us be able to explain it in detail.
Sounds really easy when you say it like that.
It does.
Just flows off the tongue.
Yes, please.
Is there going to be 1 planning element group or 9 planning element groups?
9 planning element groups.
Okay.
There'll be a committee made up of, my suggestion is, directors and various expertise will form the planning element committee. Within in the committee will be 1 water resources. Then there will be sensitive areas. They can form their own group of various expertise who will look at the subject areas that are concerned within the 2010 Comprehensive Plan, which areas are to be revised. We foresee, we already know that the water resources and sensitive areas is so much important, so there's discussion my directors brought in for this to be the first. So that will be their own committee. But all of these 9, there will be a standing 9-member planning element committee, and each member will be directing its expertise in terms of the various groups that I've outlined here.
So it's 1 committee with 9 members.
Yes, to overlook the planning elements, because that is the main component of the report.
Okay.
So each committee will have its chair. So, and then once we have this committee, within that they can form their expertise group, whether it's transportation, whether it's housing, whether it's priority preservation areas. Yeah.
2, 3.
Yeah, if I may. So it's one committee, but 9 groups. And so there could be some people that might serve on more than one group because of their broad range of expertise.
Yes.
During our meetings, we'll only be discussing one subject at a time.
Yes.
Right.
So on the chart, if you look on the chart, on number 5, I've made it in such a way that for every month, there's one element group. The second month, another element group. The third month, another element group. Over a period of 9 months, we would have completed all these. And they'll be coming out with draft write-ups and changes that we have to make to usher us into the crafting of the language of the final of the comprehensive plan.
I know we haven't scheduled any of the work sessions for that part because it's a little ways out, but I'm thinking that we should do it at the beginning of the month, the work session, in case it takes more than one work session for each one of these elements that we have 9. So some of them are going to have a lot of information with them.
There's
So
going
you're
to be
looking
some
at-
that are going to take longer. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been, some of these subjects,
Yeah.
I don't say we have struggled with over decades. And so to put this in place, this is, hopefully it works out. This is very aggressive.
Yeah.
It is very aggressive. That was going to be my question. You're expecting each group to, like Group 1, should be finished at the end of June?
Yes, please.
Or-
Say for water resources
yes,
element, we
please.
should be able to
Yeah.
get it done in.
Yes.
So you're given 30 days?
Yeah, that's
to
the estimated time. Yeah.
And says it with a smile, too.
I'm smiling.
But that's why I say maybe we should try to plan our work sessions the first week of the month. Then by the end of that day, we can figure out, we got to figure out when all these board members are going to be able to meet for these work sessions, be it a Monday, a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever, because we're going to have them during the day, I would suppose.
But the chart shows our work sessions at the end of all them 9
Yeah, it's like we're not.
Yeah,
even
that is
involved.
separate.
involved in
That
the
is
9.
separate.
Well, then good, let them have it.
Yeah, it does.
Yes.
That's what it looks like. We're booted out
I
at
didn't know if we had-
We're going to get them all 9 at one time.
I didn't know if we had to be
Better if you
present for
could
those or
address
not.
one at a time.
Well, actually, if that's how the paragraph is written. So
Okay.
1 month, each element worked on by the planning element group. Then, at the end of that group's work, we would bring you the result of that group, hopefully at one of your regular monthly meetings.
Okay.
Within the scheduled month. I mean, supposedly.
Well, or presumably the next element could be working on the next element. The next element group could be working on the next element while we're giving you the presentation. So it doesn't have to happen the exact same month, but
You have to be here?
But the plan is not for us to get all 9 elements at the end of the
no,
all.
you're going to get one
okay.
element update a month.
Okay.
And hopefully during regular meetings, but if your caseload, as the paragraph says, if the caseload does not allow, is when we would schedule extra meetings to keep you updated on the status.
That's even better.
Yeah.
So do we have to have that at this meeting? I mean, in the
Yeah,
past,
and-
I thought we just had it when we worked all those months.
We can't work in your
The-
office anymore, Mr.
the-
Hunt?
the-
Is that what
Worked
you're telling
months.
us?
Yeah.
In your office, it worked out pretty well.
Yeah. The committees will be doing their homework. The committees for each, if we take water, let's take an example, the Water Resources Committee. They'll be doing their homework enough, that before a presentation is made up to you, must have covered quite enough of what is required and the changes in the 2010 comprehensive plan. And they would have crafted that language to a certain extent that to go into the write-up. Yeah.
Are their meetings open to the public when they do that? Or-
Yeah, to be
Yeah.
just like this, open to the public, yeah.
But the monthly element update to you is just a presentation. It's not a work session
Yeah.
for you. It's here's what that group worked on and arrived at. Here's their final product. And then you'll be informed on that subject, and that information will be set aside while we work on the next element. And at the end is when you'll have your work sessions.
And when you say
Put
that,
the thing together, the comprehensive plan together.
Correct.
when you say it's open to the public now, suppose, are board members allowed to be present at the work session?
You would be allowed, I mean, the important thing is you can't be a quorum, so you can't
They're
act
not-
as a
Not there
commission.
as a planning commission,
Right.
suppose somebody wanted to add
Right.
input.
So you could have three.
Yeah. Well, if something bad happens, we'll work that out. I just know sometimes there's going to be a couple board members that are probably going to want to go to one or two or three or four of these
Yes,
elements.
since it's open, I think various interested and committed you might just want to contribute.
So you'll have it in this room, but.
Yes, please.
Basically, it's going to be on WebEx.
Yes, please.
And part of what we need to get input from you is also in this paragraph. So I'm referring to page 4, and it's right above the planning element table. So these groups could be made up of experts that could be appointed by the commissioners of St. Mary's County or the Planning Commission or recruited by staff. To add to that, since you've shown that some Planning Commission members would be interested, Planning Commission members could volunteer to be a member of a given group.
Well, if they wanted to, we could get in a joint email,
Yeah.
you know. If it comes to, I'll say, more than 3 of them wanting to be there, well, we'll worry about that when it comes. You know,
Okay.
we'll make it work.
So at the December meeting, Quasi, when he presented, and there was some discussion about how to find people to work on this. And what Mr. St. Clair has provided one person. So far I have a list of one. And we could go out and recruit people, as this paragraph says, or you all can put forth people that you would propose, including volunteering yourselves.
Yeah.
And then we can look to the county commissioners to appoint people.
And the thing is, the directors and various other people with expertise who will form these committees, and they will know best, who and who will be very much have time and contribute, to the subject areas of this area. So if we take, for example, transportation element, for instance, we expect John Dietrich, the director of transportation, to be the chair. He will form his own people who will really contribute. Look at the 2010 comprehensive plan, what changes to be made, and then the presentation will be made up to you. So that's how it's going to operate on the various element groups. For the chairs will be able to find out who and who will be able to contribute, to look at what is in the 2010, what changes should be made, then the presentation to you. Your work sessions will only really start when the draft document has been given to you. And then you've done the public hearing, and then the work session will follow up. Then you have the whole document in one totality, yes. But these are subject areas required within the state mandates.
Let me ask another question real quick, just so I'm trying to understand. I'm kind of comparing it to the work sessions that we did over at Lugum a few years ago.
Okay.
Updated some of the comprehensive
Right.
plan. With this, it says the Planning Elements Group will make a presentation at our regular Planning Commission meeting, like
Yes.
Mr. Knight said. So at that point, when they're giving us, just say end of the first month, they're giving us the water resources update, or it's finished, this is what we've got for you to look at for the water resources element. Is that at a time that we will discuss that, and will it be changeable, or like we, when we had to work sessions, we went through each particular part, and if one of them said you need 3 acres to build a house, and 5 members of the 9 voted that we only needed 2.5, it changed.
It certainly will be changeable because it's just a presentation of the work that the elements group had completed thus far. And so those 9 elements will all have to be put together in the draft comprehensive plan. And so when we give the presentation, that would be at the commission's discretion if you want to have discussion and provide comment at that time.
What I would think will be helpful is, and it's just my opinion on the board, is when we finish each, you're going to give us whatever the committee has came up with for water resources. I would think that at that time, we would probably, I don't know if we would want to do it here or look at it on our own and make some notes. So at the end, when we got to the entire document, is that the way that you would think to do it? If we had 20 total changes over the whole 9 elements or whatever, or would we address each one right now? Let's get the water resources done, happy with the board members, and what would be the preferred way for
Most of these elements group in comprehensive plan process are very cyclical. They are not finite. So if the committee looks at water resources and reviews that there are some major issues that have come up here, meeting you formally, the presentation that they are giving to you is not the final as such. No. We foresee that the committee members will have a communication with ourselves, with yourselves. There will be ongoing discussions as such, and before even they come over here, that this is the format, because there might be another person outside who will be listening, who will say, hey, you have come up with this is what my idea that I have, on these water resources. So most of these discussions will be ongoing, but we expect the committee to come up with a final draft document after the public elements meeting up with you, to go into the draft plan, which will also have to go through another review and work sessions as such. Yeah.
Because there could be elements that once, you can't expect this board to review that, digest it, make recommendations in a night.
Hour. Right.
Yeah.
It's just not doable.
No, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't think that's our intent at all.
No.
These elements work groups will do their work. The results of that work will be presented to you, understanding your interests, Mr. Van Kirk. We should get that presentation to you well in advance so that you can see it and be prepared to discuss it. And then if the commission, of course at the chairman's discretion, decides they want to have a discussion at the meeting on the subject and provide feedback, input, every step of the way, we need to gather information. We need to, collect and hear and assimilate, and then so we will have done that up to a point, and we're going to present what that elements group did. Then you're going to give us feedback that night at the presentation, if you so desire, and then we'll take that back. And the next step after the elements group is the actual drafting of the plan, but it's just a draft. Then there'll be the public hearing, and you'll get the public's input.
Because somewhere down the road, and I'm just using these as an example, we hear the water resources element part of it, and we discuss it, and we're moving on. Then we get somewhere down the road, like housing element, and start working on that. And we realize we left something out of the water resources, or something pops up, so
We can
we'd
go
still be
back.
able to move back and forth.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's a working document. And then when you get to then when you have a draft that has everything from the work groups, everything from your feedback from the presentations, everything from the public hearings, then is when you're going to need to invest much more than an hour in your work sessions to arrive at that final document.
Which I didn't think would be
Yeah.
in here.
Yeah, because the work session is on, if you look at the chart, it's the task 7. The task 7 after the public hearing, which the CMA will go through reviews and comments and feedbacks and so many others. Yeah.
And Ms. Robrek, are you asking for confirmation that the work sessions would take place here?
Well, I'm not in a planning and zoning meeting here. I meant, like our once a month or twice a month meeting.
Right. Your regular monthly meeting, I don't think would accommodate a work
I don't
session.
either. That
Those
would-
those would be special meetings.
Okay,
Because,
that's my
I'd
point.
like to think that a lot of people would come in and make comments during the work sessions. It's always better, the more information you get, the better. But you're going to have a certain amount of people in this room to, I'll say, staff and such, that's going to, y'all will be present at these meetings.
Yeah.
And then as many as you can accommodate
Yeah.
will come in, and then the rest will be on WebEx.
But now, with all these virtual meetings, we intend to, once we send our information to the PIO and much publicity is given onto this, when we're doing these work sessions and others, we expect people to, call in or write in, or then we intend to give much publicity and on this process on the Legum website, and also in the various areas where the PIO, the Public Information Office, will provide the information. And throughout all this, so there will be this continuous cyclical review of whatever outcomes that we see in this program. Mm-hmm.
Quasi,
May I ask a question, please? This is Kim Summers. Can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what I'm thinking, I'm trying to follow, is that, for example, the first element would be discussed, and at that meeting, the group that is presenting that element would obviously provide all the members of the Planning Commission the information prior to the meeting so that we could review. They would come in, they would do their presentation. And then what sort of makes sense to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that then the next meeting would give us an opportunity to come back with any additional questions, possibly listen to public comment, and then the second element group would present their information so that there's a little bit of an overlap with each one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we're speaking the same language.
Yeah, okay.
Quasi, do you see some that these work groups are going to be formalized just to the degree that there'll be a certain number of members of these work groups? And there's going to be some subjects you're not going to have a problem with people reaching out.
Yeah.
There are some of these subjects that are people very passionate about.
Yeah.
So with regard to the group itself, do you have some sense about the number of people that would form the group? Is it going to be sort of a finite number? Not the information. You're going to have information flowing in all over the place, I hope.
I think if we elect a chair of, let's say, transportation, and John Dietrich knows that within this area, there's an element that will look on highways, or there's or certain MDOT requirements, that will determine the number of expertise that he's actually looking for.
Because they're going, within the
And it
work
overlaps,
group,
yeah.
Within the work group, they're going to have to come to consensus
Yeah.
within that work group.
Yeah.
And if it's open to, well, it's open, but if it continues to be open to 100 people, drawing consensus sometimes from 7 is difficult enough, aside from
Yeah, it to be a controlled group by
Yeah,
the
that's what I was
chair.
getting to,
It to be
yeah.
a control group by the chair of the element group. Water resources is a major issue, that you'll find a lot of people who want to just send the chair. If we find that the chair for that water resources element, there are so many variations on whether there's an element of groundwater. There's so many others, and you'll find those expertise to be that group. And they would actually look at the language in the existing comprehensive plan, make the change, look at what has been happening, and then help craft a draft language for us, to follow up in the revised comprehensive plan. So the elements groups will be controlled group actually by the chair.
So it's important. I mean, this is, for some of us, we've done this before. So it's important for people to make a contribution, for people
yes.
to reach out to because once every 10 years, outside of adjustments along the way, this is an opportunity
Yes.
to address a lot of these things.
Yes,
Not that they will be remedied, because many of the things that we talked about
Yes.
in 10, we'll be talking about again in 20.
yes, yes.
So I would encourage people that over the last 5 years that have issues with something,
Yes.
that they voice them. This is a time to do that.
Yes, yes.
So if
yes.
they would do that, it's helpful.
Yeah.
Don't wait till after it's over and then start to complain.
I know, yeah. We intend to have an online provision. And that's been done in various counties, an online on a subject area. And people can put in their comments, put in their reports, and you could have a lot of feedbacks. And then we ourselves and the committee will sift through the comments.
And this is not for this time, but I've been able to participate in charrettes
Yeah.
that do the very same thing.
Exactly.
Everybody has a button. They get a bunch of flashcards come up, and you start, I like it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you have some students, perhaps from a university, that put all that information together.
Yes. Mhm.
And as Ms. Summers says, the next time you meet,
Yeah.
you're shared that information that you talked about
Yeah.
from the previous session. I mean, Calvert did it with Prince Frederick. Unfortunately, it was one of the most successful charrettes I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, none of it was implemented, at least almost none of it.
Yeah.
which is truly a shame, because after all that time, and when we all came together in the church, here comes, are there any questions? And everybody wants to shudder.
Yes.
And there were two.
Yeah.
There were just two comments, how well it had gone.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, all that really good information.
Yeah.
And unfortunately.
Yeah, we mentioned the charrettes in the visions
Yeah.
exercise, and various jurisdictions have done it. Virtually. Virtually, both the items on the newspaper, Dorchester County, the items on the newspaper in which people contribute their views on sustainability, what are their views on community design, what are their views on transportation or housing and others. And then the charrettes will operate in that way, and that will be the same.
The success of this particular charrette, which it was a much smaller area,
Yeah.
was that there are overlays.
Yeah.
It's that here is the basic idea,
Yes.
and they present it.
Okay.
And everybody will say, oh, I don't like that. And then they would, I use the term VELEX. It's old school.
Okay.
Clear. And they would lay the next layer on top and say, well, do you like that better?
Okay.
And that's how it evolved, over time. And and then they would vote, this is what we'd like to see. And then they would talk about phasing and the rest of that.
Yeah.
It's a protracted thing. In this particular instance, it was not inexpensive.
Okay.
I mean, because they had a company that they came in. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just simply saying that the more input that you have
Exactly.
is better for the people that are getting these work groups.
Yeah.
And then if you have the people, the professionals within the work group,
Okay.
be able to put it together in some sort of a concise
Okay.
manner
Yes.
is helpful.
Is there no way, I'm really concerned about the aggressive schedule, because back when we went through that last one, appears to me it was we were 6 months putting all that together at the end.
That was a partial, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a way to work this in parallel? the elements in parallel instead of serial?
If you look at the flow, and this is so sequential that we definitely need to start with the vision exercise. We can't wait because the vision exercise actually sets the ball rolling. And as a state mandate, that actually asks us to take out the lead and then put out. So if we have the PIO, the newspapers, and others come in with all these 12 visions, we will have as many responses as much as possible, which will actually help in terms of the penetration and then the rate of public participation in it. From then on, then we just take a look at the planning elements, which also, the way it's been ordered as such, we thought of water resources being as a big determination upon which others can follow. If we are doing water resources, nothing stops us is actually looking at economic sector.
Exactly.
Yes.
Or HR.
Yes.
Human resources.
So it can be flipped around depending upon
I'm just thinking,
which ones.
where can you work these in parallel with each other?
Yeah, we'll take a look at that and then that can
Instead
be
of-
done. Yes.
But to work on 2 or 3 elements per month?
Yeah, you've
Yeah.
got them, two, if there's no correlation between the two, I mean,
Yes.
significant. Everything's integrated at the end of
Yeah.
the day, but if there are elements that can be done in parallel with other groups working, that's going to cause no conflict. Why wouldn't you do that to accelerate
Yeah.
getting it to that end stage where I think it's going to take more than 3
Yeah.
months?
And there's some of those things that are going to overlap anyway. I mean, you're going to have
Yes.
some overlap. You're going to have, housing, for example, will overlap with transportation.
Yeah.
And those sorts of things. So you'll have a certain amount of overlap. But no matter what we do, we'll work it
Yeah.
until it doesn't work. And then, well, that's true. I mean,
I know.
you'll
I just was
go
trying
until
to
it
think.
doesn't, and then you'll have to say, no, wait a minute.
I don't
stop.
want to put, you put an aggressive schedule, you're thinking,
Right.
Yeah.
oh boy, that might be a possible failure from the get-go.
So the aggressive part of the schedule for you is we are not giving you enough time for the work sessions at the end?
Right, because that's where I thought we had spent so much time.
Yeah.
Might be wrong, but it was like,
No, and I don't think you are wrong. So if we need to give you more time for your work sessions at the end, this would potentially stretch out a little bit longer. And maybe some planning elements don't need a full month. So we might be able to compress that time to give you, but what's important is we give you the amount of time you need at the end.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the other issue that we had with some of the other stuff that we did, we got into the weeds.
Well, I was
Should,
gonna say, we were
would,
like a dog with the
will,
bird.
shall, those.
I'm
those
not
kinds.
saying we did that, but
Well, some of it, I mean, with Lakeshore Park, when it was verbiage, I guess.
yeah.
And there's actually some verbiage in here. Some it's sort of intermingled,
But sometimes we had to bring people from the outside in because it got so complicated. So we needed the expertise to come in and further outline for us what the
We
intent.
actually had to bring the Navy in.
We brought the
Yeah.
Navy in.
Yeah.
And that was-
So
that
that's
was
when
a-
I,
Well, we
Something
can still
that-
bring people in for our part of the.
but scheduling within that small, that was my only concern.
Yeah. Okay.
3 months seems like a long time, but it's not.
After this. When is the census to be completed? Any idea?
It was stated that it is in April, but depending upon whatever political
Kind of postpone?
leadership or whatever that they have, we don't know yet.
Say it ain't
Yeah.
so.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, what you're saying is, don't get too concerned about the schedule. If you need more time, of course, you're going to get it.
Yeah. The schedule is a guide, and it's actually,
Simply going to have to be, as a commissioner, you're just going to say, hey, ho, I need a little more time.
yeah.
The elements might shrink up, and we have asked for more time on
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, managing expectations.
And virtual meetings, Mr. Hunt, I don't know what we're going to do. We're not going to have cookies at the work sessions. So we're not going to have that sugar fix to bust us through that second hour.
Oh, I'm not going in.
It's going to be a little tougher this time around.
That is the reason why the virtual public participation in most comprehensive plan that I've seen currently have been very much effective. I mean, there have been some counties in which they got hundreds and hundreds of, once they put the questions online, and you ask to what are your views on the priority preservation area, looking at the regulations and others, you will find various other expertise who are outside the committees that we have set such, and individuals who will come up with a lot of ideas for us to perceive and go through them as such. So this format and the schedule is guiding us. But as you said, when we start setting up the elements group, I said, there are so many ways we can work around, and all that I'm asking is your permission to get this going and ask for the directives for us to start.
Okay.
Will we be kept apprised of the group's meetings? I mean, the scheduling of some of these things if we want to participate? Any idea how that will get done?
You mean the planning elements groups?
Well, the elements group, when they get together, if they're going to get together and do planning.
Yes, once we're able to identify and set up the committees,
Right.
Whether it's transportation, whether it's economic and others, we'll be able to work around on what are the major items within this committee that needs to be covered, and who are the expertise related to the 2010 comprehensive plan. Their time and their schedule, we know that they are operating within the confinements of a certain period, and they would actually have to set up their own to us, that we need a report in the next 30 days.
Yeah, they may wind up doing most of their meetings on Zoom, too.
That is the thing. And they will be able to just give us a report within a certain number of time. If there needs to be an extension and others, we will just discuss it and then get back to you. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think the work plan that I have here is feasible and is workable, and with much hard work and determination, we'll be able to just get it going.
All right.
Okay.
Ms. Summers, BJ, or Joe Fazekas, do you all have any comments?
I don't.
No.
Okay.
I guess my only question would be tied to how we plan on selecting the group, because it sounds like we have an opportunity to choose people as well. Are we going to have that type of discussion, and is there a deadline?
Yeah, I think you'll be consulted, both the commissioners and then the planning commission members and various department chairs. Each channel will be consulted, in terms of who and who is forming the group.
Who has the final say on groups? I'm just saying, suppose each board member here happened to come up with 2 people that they wanted on a board, and you all considered that too much. Who would it come down to make that decision?
I think so far as they are qualified to, because if it's a water resources and I appoint someone who can provide much input into it, it's all well and accepted. But I think ourselves and then also your commission and then the board will have to have a final say on this.
All right, well, we have a sample motion to go ahead and move it forward if anybody else doesn't have any. If there's no other discussion items.
Good. Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission request that the Commissioners of St. Mary's County are directed to proceed with the revisions of the 2010 Comprehensive Plan.
A second.
All right, I have a motion and I have a second by Ms. Robrecht. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll go down the checklist again. Kim Summers?
Aye.
Patty Roebuck,
Aye.
Joe Van Kirk,
Aye.
Merle Evans,
Aye.
BJ Hall,
Aye.
Joe Fazekas.
Aye.
Okay. And I also vote aye. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Boss.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Our next, get back to the agenda here. Okay, our next, we have a public hearing for the Chesapeake Bay Critical Area Map Approval. Since this is a public hearing, we got Kathy manning the phones in case anybody calls in. Okay. All right, so anybody at this time that's going to be testifying, and I will swear in anybody that calls in as they come. If you'd stand at this time, and I'll swear you in. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Okay. I think y'all had a PowerPoint presentation for us. Or handout, however you want to call it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Bill Hunt, Director, Department of Land Use and Growth Management. For the critical area boundary map update. First, where is the critical area? All waters of the Chesapeake Bay, the Atlantic coastal bays, their tributaries to the head of tide, all land under these waters. And then what we're most concerned with here, of course, is the land within 1,000 feet of the landward edge of tidal waters and tidal wetlands. The background to what I'm presenting tonight begins some years ago. The original 1,000-foot critical area boundary was manually drawn using the 1972 tidal wetlands map, and they haven't been updated since then. The boundary back then was drawn manually, and of course there were inherent inaccuracies. And since that time, not only do we have initial inaccuracies, there have been extensive changes to the landscape, the shoreline, wetlands, and the maps must match the landscape. The electronic maps are now the standard. So that brings us to the General Assembly. In 2008, which bear in mind that's 2008, this mapping project started at the state level. House Bill 1253 has mapping provisions. The legislation required the state to work cooperatively with local governments to update the critical area maps, to replace those original hand-drawn maps with an electronic map. HB 1253 directed the Department of Natural Resources to prepare a statewide base map with a state-determined shoreline. The new boundary line has been drawn using color infrared imaging, new light detection ranging data, new aerial photography, and GIS software. Critical Area Commission staff, the Eastern Shore Regional GIS Cooperative, and Salisbury University staff worked with local governments to make the new boundary line. Field visits were conducted in some instances to ground truth the aerial photography and color infrared imagery. The Critical Area Commission held a public information meeting here in this room in August of 2018. Property owners with at least a 1% change in the critical area boundary on their property, as determined by the mapping group that was putting this map together, were notified by letter of the change and the meeting with critical area staff. The letter had photographs of the proposed change on their property. Here's some images of how that mapping process, we shouldn't say how, but at least the data that it looked at. I hope this is showing up well enough. Yeah. So what they looked at was to digitize the shoreline, the edge of open water, location of water, time of image capture. They took into consideration shadows, tree canopy, the width of the channels. And then in the next one, you see what it looked like with false color infrared, where they digitized the elements of concern and of interest to show the wetlands as well as the water itself. In the mapping process, when there were discrepancies, anomalies, inconsistencies that were identified, next slide, Harry, they were reviewed, and additional resources such as permits, historical aerials helped resolve issues, and in some cases, DNR went into the field to ground truth the images that they were, and the maps that they were making. The County GIS Division created an online map for county residents to show a comparison of where the critical area boundary is currently located on their property and where it will be located with the adoption of the new boundary line. And these were posted after that meeting, and they've been on the website ever since. The maps are on the website so that residents who own property in the critical area can compare what's on their property now as far as mapped and what the new change is going to be. The Critical Area Commission also responded to residents with questions about the revised boundary, and field verification was done when needed. So where we are now is St. Mary's County and all local governments must adopt the new maps without changes. In other words, the General Assembly passed legislation in 2008 instructing that these new maps be made. And after they were made and finalized, in our case that was done after that meeting in 2018, then the legislation requires that local governments adopt the maps, but you can't change the maps. So in other words, what you have in front of you is the final version that was put together by the state, and then our GIS division received those files and put them on the existing official zoning maps of St. Mary's County, such that when the commissioners of St. Mary's County adopt these in a month or so, they will become the official zoning maps will have that new boundary. But not this board nor the commission can change them at this point. It's a state-created product that must be adopted by the local governments.
Landowners say over the past year that have come to you to work out whatever they want to do on that piece of property. Have you all been utilizing those maps?
No landowners that I know have come to the department. Initially, when the Critical Area Commission sent out the maps, Harry received some people coming to the counter asking what it means. But afterwards, it's been quiet since 2018. Well, the meeting was well attended.
Meeting was well attended, but they answered the questions well. They had stations set up
all over.
And yeah.
Right, and then after that point, they went out into the field. The department doesn't have a list of who might have made inquiries and what the results were, but it was a one-on-one situation where the critical area staff and DNR people were here, and if property owners who had received those letters came and asked them questions, they either got an explanation that satisfied them with the change that had actually been shown on their property, or else in some few cases, I don't know how few, DNR arranged to go to property to field truth what the people were talking about.
They were very thorough at that meeting that night.
It was a very thorough meeting. Well,
I thought it went well.
yeah, I thought it did too.
Okay.
Bill, when this is all said and done, of the people that will be affected by this, will they be notified of whatever changes were made or how it has affected them or anything like that? Or are they
No.
none of that gets out?
This is a countywide change to the zoning maps.
Right.
That had that input before in 2018 with the people who drew
Right.
the maps. So at this time, the maps have been put on the website and advertised
Right.
for information, but again, it's one of those, I don't like to say it's a catch-22 exactly because it doesn't exactly fit, but the situation is the state made the maps and says you must adopt them, and they're countywide in impact, though.
So, but this is just for the 1,000-foot
If they mapped the shoreline and the tidal wetlands and then drew the 1,000-foot boundary off of those.
So that boundary now, the 200-foot buffer now will come off of will come off of those new lines?
Just like it does now.
Just like it does now?
Right.
Okay, but there's nothing in there about expanding that buffer,
Off the
the 200-foot buffer?
the same ordinance that
the same.
pertains, right?
Right, okay.
It's just resetting the line based on accurate data for shoreline and tidal.
I guess what I'm getting, because it winds up to people that are proximate to water, for example, there's the 1,000-foot buffer, the 200-foot buffer, and then there's floodplains. And all three of those things can affect what you can or can't do. And so I didn't know whether or not anything else was going to be affected other than this 1,000 foot. But you're telling me that just the 1,000 foot is going to be done and that'll be adopted.
Correct. But now remember that the change between 1972 and whenever the state actually mapped St.
Mapped
Mary's
them.
County would have shifted or could have shifted.
Sure, yeah, and that's what I was getting to. Yeah, there were some shifts, probably some fairly large shifts, especially for those people that were not unable to address erosion
Right.
and on the fronts of their properties. I mean, there are probably properties along the way that lost 25, 30, 40 feet over time. And so all that gets moved back.
Yes, move back.
It's just like, it's always 1,000 feet, it just gets reclaimed.
Correct.
And where does it fall now? You know, for a lot of people, they're inside, all of their entire property's inside. For other people, it's not, it's marginal. And so for people that it winds up affecting them, where it winds up being, it slides them into the critical areas, do they have to go to the Board of Appeals, just like they do now?
And I'm sorry, Chairman, I didn't let myself be sworn in, but I'm just asking an administrative question, I would say. Well, you only go to the Board of Appeals if you're seeking a variance. Not everyone who develops in the critical area needs a variance. In fact, most people don't.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm just concerned about, I'm looking at this one comment and the one written comment that we got, and I suspect he probably wasn't part of that 2018 endeavor that went as well as it did. So maybe reaching out to him with some information won't change anything.
It won't change anything.
I mean, it is what it is.
And the information that's provided actually answers.
Yeah, and it was clear that in the document, where you state, I don't see the need. Well, the state did.
Well, that's why I tried to emphasize from
2008
2008 is quite a time span.
Sure, I agree. Okay, thanks.
And then from 2008 to 2018, when the meeting was held here, is 10 years also.
Okay.
Let me ask a quick question. I'm not sure if it's Mr. Knight or you, Mr. Hunt. If a person has a property that, just say, is a rectangular acre and a half, one little tip of a corner, probably 20 feet in, is touched by that new line, is only that part have to be worried about if you needed a septic system or a well or something, or does the whole lot have to go by since that it touches that tip now?
No, sir. You work around where the critical area lines fall on your property.
Okay.
It doesn't require the whole.
Like the AQs, if you're building out of the AQs, even if part of your
That's a
lots
good example,
in
right.
that, you don't have to follow that particular.
Right.
Okay.
You put your building out of the AQs. Just like in here, you put your building out of the buffer is where you start with. And then whatever portion of your property is within the critical
Sure.
area itself, you have to pay attention. Same thing with floodplain. But, floodplain actually is a little different. Don't let me cloud the issue with that. Your AQs example was a good example. You
Okay.
just see where your developable area is and work accordingly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there any question from any of the board members on WebEx?
No questions.
No question.
No questions.
Am I able to ask Mr. St. Clair if he has a question on this, since this is,
Might as well.
I think he is
No,
working on
no,
that. Joe, you have any?
no,
Okay.
no questions.
Okay. Well, Mr. Hunt, you're basically staff and the applicant also, I take it on this,
Oh, well,
since there's I mean, you've represented,
correct.
okay. So I'll go ahead and open it up to public testimony. Does anybody else here? I'm sorry, I asked WebEx. I think everybody here is asked, okay. I'll open it up to public testimony, and can you call and see if we have anybody online?
I see a red light. It's not blinking yet to allow me to pick it up, but it does. We'll give it a moment. And I could be misinterpreting the device. I'll call and see if anyone has called in.
Thank you.
Oh, it looks like we have one.
Thank you for calling the Planning Commission. This is Kathy.
Ms. Garcia, do we have a public caller?
Yes, there is one holding on line 2.
Very good. I see it blinking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. You've reached the Planning Commission.
Okay. Could we get your name?
Johnny Mills.
Could we get your name and address, please, and then I'll swear you in before your testimony?
My name's Donnie Mills. I'm at 24476 Blackstone Road, Hollywood, Maryland.
And pardon me, what was your name again?
Donnie Mills.
Donnie Mills. PW.
Okay.
I can barely hear you guys.
Ditto. Okay. If you want, I will swear you in now so we can get your public testimony. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
There you go. You're back. Okay. Yes, sir. Please go ahead with your statements.
Well, I think the map, talking about revising the map line, I think is one item. And I don't think a lot of people have a problem with accepting a new map. The items in the zoning ordinance that would pertain to a property, I think, is the main issue. So, for example, my property in Hollywood is completely out of the critical area boundary now. And then in this new map, mine is totally within that boundary. So what happens is the items in the zoning ordinance would then kick in onto my property. So two parts of that is, one is the 15% coverage becomes a condition on my property that isn't there today. And right now it's allowable to have an accessory apartment, and I would most likely not be able to have that. And I don't think there's a variance that even applies for that accessory apartment. So I mean, those are the two things that I think are the most important to people in this, for this mapping change. I don't think it's the map per se that people got trouble with. And I think that's what you had another written statement that went in. I think that's what that was kind of aimed at. So one other item that I think really wasn't said is that this in Chapter 41.3.3.A and B of the CZO, I think, is like what this meeting's all about tonight. And so I think they're following the right steps. That's one of the things that was brought up about, at least in the written statement. But I question also is item C right after that, is that no longer going to be needed in the CZO? So that talks about errors in the map. So, I mean, is this new map, adopting this new map, is that clearing up all errors? There's going to be no other contesting the line, in other words. So, I mean, that's really what I have. So I think my main question is the CZO going to change, going to be amended in the future? I think it is, but is it going to be amended to address these couple things that I've brought up here?
The quick answer to that is yes, the CZO is going to be amended. It's been in process for a long time, I'm embarrassed to say. It's never been completed. It's close, but so far I haven't gotten it to the point to make it its final draft and get it moving forward. But having said that, what really pertains when you talk about the CZO is the fact that the CZO can be more stringent than COMAR with the critical area law, but it can't be less stringent. So the goal in amending the CZO is to have it align perfectly with what COMAR restricts, but go no further. So when the amendment to the critical area ordinance is finished, it's going to be like COMAR. And so the provisions that are in COMAR that restrict the use of your land are going to be in the CZO.
And Mr. Chairman, would you want to give me an opportunity to be sworn in again to address?
Yeah, because I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and you're going to have to. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
So in regards to accessory apartments have always been allowed in the IDA and the LDA. They were not allowed in the RCA until earlier this century when we did amend the CZO. And so accessory apartments are allowed in the critical area, including the RCA.
Oh, okay.
Now, as far as the 15% lot coverage, depending on the size of your lot, there's a scale. The smaller a lot is, it's actually allowed to go over the 15%. But if you have an ample-sized lot, and I'm sorry, I don't know the exact dimension, then it is true that it is a maximum 15% lot coverage.
Right, that's in the table under the LDA section.
Yeah, but that is, as Mr. Hunt said, a state mandate. We can't amend that number.
Yeah, to that point, I think, did I understand Mr. Mills to say,
Yeah.
Mr. Mills to say that you went from not being in the critical areas at all to being completely into the critical areas?
That's what he said.
That is what Mr. Mills said.
That's a big adjustment, depending on the size of the lot.
Right, I have a 2.1 acre lot, and yes, it was completely out, and now, in this new map, it'll be totally in.
Holy, see, that's what I guess what I was getting to about the effect of.
Were you in the floodplain, or shall I say marsh, or anything like that before, Mr. Mills?
Mr. Mills, the chairman is asking, were you in the floodplain or?
Were you in a floodplain or I'll say situated on a marsh before, and I'll say Mother Nature has taken away your frontage, is why you're in there now?
Mr. Mills, can you hear the chairman?
I think he's asking about a floodplain. Am I in the floodplain now?
Well, I guess Mr. Evans asked, and I guess I'm asking too, is how did your whole lot come into the critical area all at one time? Otherwise, there was none of it in there before?
Well, my understanding of the map, when I was at that meeting in 2018, the way it was explained to me was kind of like the slide that showed a long finger going up where the tidal water reached up into into the surrounding property there. It was just a small little finger that went in, and that was tidal water. Well, that wasn't mapped in the 72 map. And then in this new edition, when they redid all the line work, it extended into that finger, which pushed the 1,000-foot boundary across my property.
Similar to Mr. Hunt's slide in the PowerPoint, these creeks, when they declare that creek is tidal, that's what brings it in. So the person who's waterfront and may have lost 50 feet of shoreline, they were always in the critical area. So it made no change to them, right? They were already right there. But it's that neighbor who was 1,050 feet away, who, because they lost 50, that 1,000-foot just shifted onto them.
They just reclaim it. They got to find that 1,000-foot someplace.
Yeah.
And so
the state law declares 1,000-foot.
Right.
So when the shoreline moves, the 1,000-foot moves inland.
Yeah, in the floodplain, you don't have to worry about it. If you have a mortgage, you don't have to worry about it because you're the person who holds your mortgage, they will reach out to you. If it's determined you're in the floodplain, and then you get to have a floodplain survey done to determine in or out. And unfortunately, I was sort of facetious when I made the comment about waving sticks, the last meeting, but that's pretty much what it is there, because until you get a floodplain survey done, your mortgage holder is going to require you to get flood insurance until it's determined that you're not in the flood zone.
So could I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
So is it recommended that that landowners, like my situation here, is it recommended that we get our building permits now? If we wanted to do, like, I've been contemplating adding on to my deck. Is that something I should do, or does it not matter on, from the critical area boundary perspective?
Well, decks are not lot coverage. So if you're concerned about your maximum 15% lot coverage, the deck...
And patios are, right?
Patios are, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just impervious, I guess.
So is there any benefit for doing that prior to? I mean, I'm assuming everybody that's over 15% now, and if they go into this, like if I was over 15%, I would be grandfathered in. Would I not, or would I have to remove impervious surface?
You'd be grandfathered, but if you came in for a permit, you'd have that option of trading. If you wanted some new surface, you would offer to give up some old.
I got it. Okay. All righty. Thank you all.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Mills? Thank you, Mr. Mills, for calling in.
Hey, and he did hang up.
Okay. Are there any more callers?
I do not see any more. I'll call Ms. Garcia just to be sure.
Please.
This is Kathy Garcia, and we have no other public testimony.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll go ahead and close public testimony. It's been open for a while, so I would have called. Well, basically, we just have to approve these maps to send to the county commissioners. There's nothing for us to change.
There's nothing for you to change.
So, is there any discussion from any of the board members? Hearing none, would anybody like to make a motion to forward these to the county commissioners for their approval? Calm down now. Now, everybody don't jump in there at once, okay?
I'm looking for a motion.
Looking for-
Merle's back here. Last page. No, of this one. The blue.
Yes, that was,
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I make
Go
a
ahead.
motion that the commissioners of St. Mary's County adopt that we forward maps to the St. Mary's County Commissioners to adopt the revised maps.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have
A second.
He beat you to it.
Fine.
Ms. Summers, we'll let you do the second since we got a small pause in between there. Okay. I'll go down the list. All in favor of the motion, Kim Summers,
Aye.
Patty Robrack, Joe Van Kirk,
Aye.
Merle Evans,
aye.
BJ Hall,
Aye.
Joe Fazekas,
Aye.
and I'll also vote aye. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Hey, is there any other business this evening? Okay, hearing none, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Okay. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.